Hi, so today I'll cover how over the last week the Trump administration has attacked its perceived enemies, suppressed the truth while putting out lies, and continued with corrupt practices. So starting with attacking enemies. So firstly, the National Science Board is the National Science Foundation's governing body, and its role is to advise the administration and Congress on national science policy. It has authority to oversee the actions of the $9 billion National Science Foundation budget. It sets policy and it personally approves large expenditures. Last week, Trump suddenly fired all 24 members of the board, which is unprecedented. He also went after the Supreme Court on Truth Social for not doing his immediate bidding on a variety of cases such as birthright citizenship or tariffs. He went after both the Democratic appointed judges and the Republican appointed judges. And then he attacked the New York Times and CNN for negative coverage on the Iran war, not very convincingly writing, "For those people, fewer in number now than ever before, that are reading the failing New York Times or watching fake news CNN, that think I am anxious to end the war, if you would even call it that, with Iran, please be advised that I am possibly the least pressured person ever to be in this position." Meanwhile, the Strait of Hormuz remains closed, and Trump today said it might be closed for months, which would have disastrous consequences for the whole world. The FBI began investigating a New York Times reporter last month after she wrote about the FBI's director, Kash Patel, and his practice of using FBI personnel to provide his girlfriend with government security and transportation. FBI agents apparently looked through databases for information on the reporter and recommended moving forward to determine whether she broke federal stalking laws. So those actions have prompted concerns that the FBI inquiry was really just a retaliation for an article that she wrote that Patel and his girlfriend didn't like. Meanwhile, the Pentagon got rid of the independent watchdog of the US military newspaper, The Stars and Stripes, but gave no reason. And then a kind of slightly obscure one, but I think it matters, is the United Soybean Board. So the United Soybean Board is a 77-member body of volunteer farmers that oversees how soybean farmers' mandatory industry dues, which is over $100 million a year, are spent on research and promotion for the industry. Members are nominated by their fellow farmers in each state and formally appointed by the Agriculture Secretary. And historically, that's literally just been the Agriculture Secretary, the USDA, Department of Agriculture, just gives a rubber stamp to their nominations. But last week, the Trump administration rejected all 4 women farmers chosen by their peers to represent them, and 3 of those women suspected that was because they were women. And in fact, among 40 new and reappointed directors to the board, none were women. And we now have, out of the 77-member board, only 5 women on it, which is the lowest in at least a decade. Moving on to US allies, an internal Pentagon email reportedly outlined options to penalise NATO allies that were perceived as unsupportive of the US war in Iran. So this includes potentially suspending Spain entirely from NATO and reassessing the US support for Britain's claim to the Falkland Islands. And then sticking with the UK, Trump also threatened to impose a big tariff on the UK if it doesn't drop its digital services tax on US social media firms. So the digital services tax is big new legislation in the UK that targets companies whose worldwide revenues from digital activities exceed £500 million, with more than 25 million of those coming from UK users. And what Trump said is, we've been looking at it and we can meet that very easily by just putting a big tariff on the UK, so they better be careful. Now, suppressing truth and spreading lies. So firstly, the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, has decided not to publish a report showing that last season's COVID vaccines reduced hospital visits. So the report, which had cleared the CDC's internal scientific review process, was first delayed, and now it's been decided they're just not going to publish it. And then the administration has been accused of covering up the extent of damage to its bases and military assets in the Gulf, where Iran has apparently caused billions of dollars in damage. So this is raising questions about the Trump administration's transparency regarding the potential costs for repairs, and especially as private briefings to politicians regarding that damage and potential costs have also been sparse. What else happened is that last week, Virginia passed a ballot to allow redistricting ahead of the midterms, which will give more seats to the Democrats in the midterms. Trump was furious, and he basically continued to promote false claims that the Virginia ballot was fraudulent. He tied it to mail-in ballots with no evidence, and then threatened to use the courts to overturn the referendum. So far, he's tried, but has been unsuccessful. Trump and his aides have also tried to chase vote rigging claims more directly. So despite repeated findings of zero evidence for any vote rigging or any faulty machines that could be used for voter fraud, Trump and his aides are continuing to try and find evidence to support their conspiracy theories. And then in a really kind of bizarre moment, RFK Jr., the health secretary, decided to defend Donald Trump's wrong percentage calculations on prescription drug discounts. So Trump has claimed that he has secured discounts of anywhere between 400, 1,000, 1,500% on prescription drugs. Now, a price discount cannot be more than 100%, which reduces the price to zero. So a 50% discount reduces it by half, 100% reduces it to zero. You cannot have more than 100% discount. They then doubled down on it the next day with both RFK and Trump saying that it's just a different way of calculating percentages. It's not a different way of calculating percentages. It's a wrong way of calculating percentages. And it's just another way, perhaps minor, but it matters. It's another way of just direct misinformation and claims that black is white. And finally, in a rather sinister move, the US government released a State Department memo in a case challenging an immigration policy. And really what they're trying to do is they're trying to target the visas of non-citizen researchers, advocates, fact checkers, and anyone working in kind of trust and safety, and trying to basically prioritize them for deportation. And then finally, just coming on to corruption. So firstly, a top envoy to Trump asked FIFA, which is the international football body, to replace Iran with Italy in the upcoming World Cup this summer. This is both corrupt and also really stupid. And Italy has already said it doesn't want this. They failed to qualify. They don't want to come in on this kind of weird tit for tat just to have a go at Iran. Traders also placed a series of bets worth over $400 million on a drop in crude oil prices just 15 minutes before Donald Trump said he would extend a ceasefire with Iran last week. That's the third time this month and the fourth time since the Iran war started that large, well-timed bets on the oil price have been made just before major announcements by Trump on the Iran war. There's definitely some kind of insider trading going on there. Sticking with the military, Trump's son, Eric Trump, boasted of winning a $24 million Pentagon contract with Foundation Future Industries for a new military robot. Eric Trump is the chief strategy advisor to Foundation Future Industries. And then, as I'm sure you all know, there was an attempted assassination of Trump at the White House Correspondents Association dinner last week. And just to reiterate, political violence is not okay. But the issue is that the Trump administration and Republicans have been trying to use that assassination attempt to further Trump's ballroom building. So first, the Department of Justice tried to use that to pressure the National Trust for Historic Preservation to drop its lawsuit seeking to halt the construction of Trump's ballroom. And then Republicans in Congress pushed for legislation to fund and speed up the construction of the ballroom. They cited increased security concerns. It's really not clear what they are. Neither Trump nor the White House hosted Saturday's dinner, which had about 2,000 guests. And Trump has previously said that the ballroom will be paid for entirely by private donations at the cost of about $400 million. But now suddenly taxpayers are on the hook, potentially. So all these actions and more are available on trumpactiontracker.info. Go check it out, and I'll be back in a week or so.